Welcome to the fourth episode of Realtalk with Claudia, everybody. And before we go any further, I'd just like to say Happy New Year. It's 2025. And, just to give you a bit of a backstory. So on the 31st, my friend and I are preparing for the crossover, very excited. We're planning what we're going to dress. We're doing our hair. And then 2 hours before midnight, we're hungry. We go to look for food. All of the KFC outlets are closed. We go to Pick n Pay Mashai Tafula. We get something to eat. We're in the car, we're eating, and then we're full. And then out of the blue, we're just lazy. We are just lazy. I go back home. The crossover starts. People are shouting 10, 9, which is something I've been singing about the whole week. 10, 9, 8, 7. The fireworks are beautifying. The sky is so beautiful. And I feel like just at that moment, I realized we live for moments like these, Whatever we're going through the past, the whole 12 months in a year, we live to see moments like that. Like the whole world in unity is celebrating seeing another year. And I think it is the first time that I was actually intentional about sending people Happy New Year. I'm wishing you the best this year. And I just allowed myself to be immersed in the moment. So I hope you also had an amazing time, whether you were alone or in the house, and you just made the most out of that. And speaking of intentionality, like it's one of my super goals for 2025, and I'm hoping the same for you. Today, we are talking about understanding relationships, and that is masculinity and femininity. So why even talk about these things? I think as you grow up, first of all, you try to find your identity and your contributions to the world, right? You try to understand yourself. And through growing, there's just that natural next step where you're like, okay, now I want somebody to love with, somebody to be in a relationship with. So then we try understanding our roles in relationships. And at the same time, one of the core reasons that I believe it's very important to be having these kinds of conversations is that most of us are being raised by single parents. HIV/AIDS came and it wiped out a lot of parents. Most children are orphaned or they are raised by single parents. So there isn't much conversations with our parents or passing down of that knowledge in terms of what is your purpose in this world or what role you play in the world or in relationships. We never get to really experience, for an example, I was raised by a single mother. I never got to experience seeing her talk to my father or the male figure in the house, the tone, respect, how they take care of the man. And I'm never experiencing my mother receiving male love and how the role of the father in the house. So, it's just one of those things. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. It is basically understanding our biological or psychological makeup and how we can actually use this to our advantage in relationships. And also because times are moving, like masculinity was probably defined a different way back in the day, and now it's different. And one of the great things about us today is that we have the privilege to kind of like pick things that we like from back in the day in relationships and combining that with our way of life today and how we can redefine that for ourselves into the future. And also we are privileged that we're heavily influenced by the Western culture, and we also have our own culture. So we can get a taste of the good from both sides and make it work for us. So yeah, this is going to be a beautiful conversation. Brace yourselves. And please do make sure that you do engage so that, we have a better understanding of how we can make relationships beautiful and also to work for us. Bearing in mind that, I believe that relationships are such a good place to start as humanity, like fixing relationships and having healthy relationships, because out of relationships comes children. And while in nature, of course, we are animalistic, but we've decided that as humanity, we want to be sophisticated and civilized so that we make sure we have children that can build a sustainable world. Where does that begin? Through relationships, healthy relationships, so that we raise healthy children. And those healthy children can be great leaders tomorrow, great mothers, great fathers, and so forth. So now, are you ready? Let's begin. To start off, let us start off by understanding femininity. So femininity in short is just womanliness. And when I came across that word like womanliness, it was like an aha moment in my head because I was thinking, you can be a female and still be manly, So when you hear the word womanliness, in my head, I was like, then it's important to learn about femininity as much as masculinity, because you'd hope that just because you're born a female or a male, you automatically have to know what it means to be masculine or feminine. But no, it's actually something that you need to take it upon yourself to understand and learn, just as much as you would hope that just because you love somebody, it would come naturally to know how to love them. But no, actually, you have to have the conversation and learn how to love, right? So just to keep it short for you, femininity is womanliness, or its traits, attributes, behaviors, and roles associated with being a female or a girl child. And now this is a conversation that begins in the medieval age, which is basically from the 5th century to the 1300th century. And philosophers argue that it arose from sexual encounters, early human sexual encounters, whereby it was mainly male forced and female unwilling, while some philosophers argue that it is just female behaviors, like social constructs for females, in a way that females have to behave in a way that sustains patriarchal social systems. Patriarchal social systems being a concept whereby roles of leadership in societies are mainly held by males. So in terms of describing femininity, it could be quite biased, because as it has already been established, these were rules that were formed at a time whereby women really didn't have a voice. So yeah, it is a social construct mainly formed by males. But hey, I'm not saying males should switch off right now, because we are going to delve into masculinity as well. And I'm one person who speaks for both sides of the story. So when you look into history, how would we tell that a woman is feminine, or what is the social construct around being a feminine woman? And one of them would be behavior and personality. So women were expected, or were like conditioned, to come across as supportive, as soft, as agreeable, as passive, as shy, as cooperative, which is very contrast to masculinity, because the opposite of that would be being disagreeable, not really cooperating, being assertive, and things like that. So normally you would see women as just really being soft people in general. And the other attribute would be physical appearance. And that would include, so back in the day, one of the things that were defined as beauty in society, women would wear neck rings because it elongates the neck. So that would be seen as feminine. And other attributes would include flowing hair, less body hair, which it does also vary according to culture and societies as well. Would also be seen, one of the most interesting things that I came across while doing research on this is that back in the day in China, women would do what is called foot binding, because small feet are seen as feminine. And I think in modern day age, we see this through Botox, through lip filling, through tummy tucks, through BBLs. And women are doing all of those things because in modern day age, that is how femininity looks like. And here's the interesting thing when it comes to the tummy tucks and the BBLs, creating curves and all of that. It is very much a psychological thing, like it's a primitive thing. So when we know this, it's a cliche, men are physical people. So they are naturally drawn towards women with a slimmer waist and who have curves. And the science behind this is because women who are structured like that have high levels of estrogen, which means that there's a possibility that they are more fertile. And, I was a little bit bummed out when I learned about this, because I was like, what about us who don't have curves, guys? But, oh, well, that's the story. So it totally makes sense for women to try to subscribe as these feminine standards or social beauty standards improve and evolve. It makes sense that nowadays women maybe may not necessarily do the foot binding, but it raises the culture with the non-cosmetic, non-medical surgeries and doing BBLs, right? Because they're trying to be in their feminine, which in turn increases the chances of getting a potential suitor and probably create kids as well, right? And the other attributes that we would see is clothing. So one of the interesting things that I came across is that back in the medieval age again, things like heels, maybe in the French society, were considered masculine, whereas today they're considered feminine. And another interesting fact was that back in the day, pink was a masculine color and blue was a feminine color. And, today we see that has clearly changed. Colors that are bright, that are like pink, purple, they're considered feminine. And actually, guys, let me share with you, one of my goals this year is to be feminine. It's a little bit sad that for the previous episode and this one, I'm wearing black, but something that I'm trying this year is to be wearing colorful clothes. Like I want to exude femininity in all ways. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. And the other thing would be traditional roles, which is kind of one of the ways that we would kind of detect femininity. So one of the things that you would notice even back in the day and that we notice today, you'd find that women are mostly found in occupations as being a teacher, as being a cashier, sales, receptionist, nice. Because it is associated with the fact that they are authentic, they are honest, they are carers. And I'm pretty sure that you see this a lot. Most of the time receptionists are females, and also because they're beautiful and could also drive in business. And the interesting thing is that this has also led to an occupational segregation and also increasing the pay gap between the genders, which is a conversation for another day. Hey, today we're only touching on the tip of the iceberg. There's like a lot to delve in when it comes to these topics. But I just wanted to now delve in a little bit deeper on to the actual practices of what it would mean of being feminine. So I went on to do a little bit of research, and I was watching a video by Jasmine Theodora on YouTube, and she was touching on the art of softness, which I found to be very interesting. And maybe as you listen to this podcast, you will realize that, I'm feminine in this way, and maybe I could improve on this, which in turn, I think would increase your success in relationships, in finding potential suitors, and just in you finding yourself and understanding yourself, So one of the things that I learned about femininity is the softness and gentleness, which is something very beautiful. And, why is it important to talk about this? Like I mentioned earlier on, most of us are raised by single parents, and we come from a place of scarcity. That is another thing. And I think these are two major things that disconnect us women from our softness. For an example, your mother as a single parent, she needs to think about providing for you, about school fees, about bigger things, about survival. She's also on survival mode. And then you're not able to experience her softer side. For an example, I'll just ask this question. How many of you have seen your mother cry? The guys in the background here.
Because of a person or because of you?
But because of being vulnerable. Just seeing them being vulnerable and being soft and gentle, especially if they're a single mother.
I think naturally, like you're saying, like it's the femininity in them that always thrives into their decision making, even into how they respond to things, you see. Because some things as young boys will think that, this thing doesn't matter. Right? And then when you get home, you find that for the female who's at home, who's trying to protect you, who doesn't know you, where you are, who's been nurturing for you, because that's a feminine thing, right?
Yeah.
Femininity is about nurturing, taking care, like you doing gender roles for women, because those gender roles, like, hence masculinity, which is why they'll say men are supposed to provide. So women are supposed to take care of the children, right? So now there is a child that's not here at home. Her response is going to be very different, and it's going to be very painful for her because she's the one who took care of you as a child. And
but do you see her shed tears?
Because you are breaking rules. You are going against her. Women can't take people that are like men who are just crazy and out there in the world trying to figure things out. You know, women are more cautious, unlike men. Men are mostly dive into things, which is why as kids, you know, you end up making your parents shed a tear.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Is your mother a single parent?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Your mother is a single parent. And for Mkombe, his mother is not a single parent. So when we talk about these things, we talk from a place of numbers, right? So it is very common for that women that have husbands could be in their feminine because there's a husband, there's a male figure in the house.
The masculinity role, someone is taking care of it.
Yes, someone is taking care of that. But for femininity, I was talking about single mothers, for an example. I think I've only, the first time that I saw my mother cry was when she lost her sister about 2 weeks ago. She cried in front of me. But before that, she's like this hostile figure because she also had to take on sort of like a masculine role in the family to think about the much more pressing issues rather than just the softer and intangible things. So, which is why I was speaking on softness, that if you want to practice femininity, you would have to practice your softness as my colleague in the background has already mentioned, that, you know, we have these social responsibilities as being nurturers and taking care of children and even taking care of our partners. So the male figure will be drawn towards that softness because it's something that they probably do not have as being masculine. And you as a woman, that is the role that you bring into the relationship and into the household. So when they ask you what you bring to the table, you say softness. And if you don't have the softness, you're probably lacking something that you need to be bringing into the table. So do work on your softness and your gentleness, which is very paramount for the caring, for the support. And, you know, one of the just practical examples of how you practice the softness and the caring is through your tone, the way that you speak, you know. So the men here love me now. But anyway, I was talking about softness, and like I said, if you're in your masculine or you're in your survival mode, this is something that you could be disconnected from. So you claiming back your femininity, you go to that exact point to learning to be soft. So the tone that you use, even if you're angry, even if you're a man, or if it doesn't even need to be a man, anybody, use your soft tone. And the use of may I, please, can I, could you, be very aware of such things. And you know, if you allow yourself to be soft, you kind of elicit it back from the other person. So if you give softness, be sure that you're going to get softness in return. And the other thing is authenticity. If you're a woman in your feminine, you are going to be authentic. And what does authentic include? It include honesty and vulnerability. You know, the ability to talk about yourself. You know, be comfortable with bringing up your shortcomings or where you are lacking, or be comfortable to ask as well. So while I was listening to Jasmine, one of the things she touched on was on independence. And she was saying, you know, independence is an illusion because everybody in some way anyway is codependent. You know, we're codependent on governments, maybe, we're codependent on the corporate, we're codependent on loved ones. And she touched on something that was like, aha, in my head. She said, the other two will not give you love. But, you know, your social circle, the people who are around you, it is where you will rely for love. So it is very important for you as a woman to be vulnerable and authentic. You know, so one of the reasons why the femininity topic to me is like so hot these days is because I made a friendship with a friend who's in her feminine. And I see this all the time. Like the moment she's worried about something or something is not going well, she's just going to pick up her phone and call me. You know, I'm not feeling good right now. This is happening. And at first, because me being in my masculine and sort of being hyper independent, I'd be like, yo, I'm gone. Hey, all right, yeah, it's going to be fine. But, you know, slowly I'm learning this. And one of the things that I've learned is that through vulnerability, you allow the space for connection to happen. You allow the space for people to support you to happen. Because if you don't ask, if you don't open up, if you don't talk, how do you expect people to be there for you? How do you expect people to show up for you? You know, one of the things that I love about the masculine and man is that this it's hardwired in their bodies is that they need to be needed. So if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, you are saying to this person, you don't need me. And you'll put them in a position where now they are in a crisis or in this internal battle of how do I contribute into your life? So vulnerability includes the little things as your little frustrations, of which sometimes you might not care about, like the type of shoe that you want to buy, or he would be very indifferent. But just you showing up, to say, oh, baby, I trust your input, or I want you to be a part of the process, or I want you to know when I'm not feeling good or I'm worried about something. That is a sign of trust and saying, I'm allowing you to be a part of my life. And speaking of this, guys, this is something I struggle so much in my life. Like I argue with that kind of openness in relationships. I struggle. I don't want to feel like a burden in somebody's life. It's areas that I lack on, but I am working on because I've noticed that they play such a paramount role into relationship building, into connection, into building connection as well. And the other thing is, as a feminine woman, understand and be rooted, like be okay with the fact that you flow in emotion. So earlier on, I touched on the fact that we want to understand that, so many times we feel like, especially men, I hear this from men a lot, they're like, women don't know what they want. Well, and you know what, to be honest, I do transcribe to that. We struggle with knowing what we want. Men are fixed, we are changeable. And the reason for that is because we flow with emotion. We're very emotional people. And it makes sense. Part of it is it's biological. We go through our period, post-period, pregnant. So even your hormones are fluctuating as well. But the good side of this, which is what I want men to be aware of, and which is also a great contribution in relationships, the fact that women are emotional, it also allows them to be passionate. It also allows them to be empathetic. It also allows them to be forgiving. It also allows them to be flexible, which are all beautiful attributes to also have in a relationship. By flexible, I mean that when a problem, because I'm getting an eye from the background, I mean that if there is a problem, they're not going to be rigid. They're going to be receptive in the many ways that the problem could be solved, right? So be grounded, be rooted, be okay with the fact that you are going to be emotional. And the beauty of this is how we are so complementary and relationships are beautiful. The fact that we are emotional, men are fixed. So having the both of that, it allows that sweet spot, sweet balance. So when you go to a man to report your problem and you are all over the place and panicking, he's not like that. He doesn't personalize the problems. He's going to be fixed, which is going to ground you, you understand, which is a good thing. And also the women's being the flow of emotion, it also allows them to be supportive. You remember we said femininity, women are supportive, they are cooperative. So their flow in emotion, it actually allows them to be cooperative and be supportive and be empathetic and look at the other side of things. And which is also the reason that they're able to keep communities around them. Okay. All right. I thought that was a question. All right. So I'm going to keep moving on. And the other thing is, if you're in your feminine, you find safe spaces as a woman. What does that mean? It means that you're not going to stay in toxic relationships. Ladies, 2025, can we please leave toxic relationships? All right?
Yes, of course.
Because you know what? If you stay in toxic relationships, they harden you. And when they harden you, when you're always worried about your safety, then you do not allow the softness and the gentleness to bloom, right? So leave toxic relationships. They're going to harden you. They're going to bring out your masculine, your survival. And, one of the things that I read on Brianna West, I'm reading 101 essays that are going to change the way that you think by Brianna West. And the chapter was on things that emotionally strong people do not do. And she was touching on catastrophizing, that they do not catastrophize circumstances or situations. And she was talking about how people normally catastrophize because they do not trust their own ability to solve the problems. So instead of even enjoying the present good moment, they'll think about the worst that could happen or about what could go wrong and sort of like start preparing for that. So again, on the flow of emotion, I think as women, we are more susceptible to overthinking. Actually, it has been proven that we are highly neurotic, which is susceptibility towards negative emotions. And as my male partner in the background has already mentioned, you know, we're always looking for safety. We have to raise kids, so we're also protective in a way, which is sort of a masculine trait. We do have those masculine attributes anyways because we have to protect. So we might find ourselves overthinking at times and just dwelling on pain because of being emotional as well. And I just want to say that whenever that happens, try to just step in and sort of like discern if you are really unsafe at that present moment. And if you're not, ease into the softness, into the gentleness, and enjoy the present moment. All right. So yeah. And another thing that I want to touch on is cooperation and dissolving conflict in a calm way. Again, it boils back to tone. It boils back to tone. So even if there's a conflict, you know, I follow Esther Perel as well. She's also a relationship therapist, and she talks about, okay, my mind just went blank. But about resolving conflict, you know, and you need to understand. She often talks about how when resolving conflict, you need to sort of take this approach that it is I and you against the conflict. It is not you and I against each other. All right. So let us dissolve this whole gender war against each other, man against women. And no, it is us against the problem. So if you sort of understand that, you're going to be pragmatic, you're going to be stoic about it, and you're also going to have a calm tone in approaching the problem. So just a fresh example of this, like I said, my friend is in her feminine and I keep on picking on these things and I just have so much admiration for her. So one time we are walking to the bus stop, and then there's this man who brushes across her boob. And, you know, she immediately reacts to that, which is also a feminine trait. You speak up your voice, confidence, you know, you exude confidence, you have boundaries. And she's straight out like, please don't do that again. Don't do that. And is defensive. And she says, you know exactly what you did. Don't touch my body. And then he goes off and then we're together, we are talking. And then the man passes on the road. He's in a car and he comes out of the window to insult her, all the worst kind of insult in our native language. Even you can imagine how that is. And she straight off laughs. Like she just laughs. And I look at her, I'm like, why are you laughing? And she's like, he's trying to get into my mind. He's trying to make me feel guilty for the fact that I stood up for myself. And I'm not going to give him that pleasure. You know, he was wrong. And that's the truth. And I asserted that, you know, and right now it probably bruised his ego, which is why he's reacting this way. I'm not
in
going
a toxic masculine manner. That's exactly. A toxic masculine manner.
And the reason he says it's in a toxic masculine manner, we're going to delve on masculinity in a bit. That is because masculinity is associated with aggressiveness, which in a sense for me, that's fine, you know. But now in the modern age, the age that we live in, you need to be able to discern when that aggressiveness is relevant. Well, when somebody attacks us in the household, you need to protect the house, the household, that aggressiveness is fine. But in a manner where my friend was placing a boundary, it was very uncalled for. And at that moment, I was thinking in my head, I was like, the reason it was a lesson to me is because in my head, when he insulted me, I would have taken it personally. I would have been ruminating about it. I would have been like, should I have said that? Maybe I was wrong. I would have doubted myself so much. So which is why I'm tapping into my femininity this year, because partly femininity is just being grounded in who you are and being confident and being assertive, you know, and some of those masculine traits, which is something that you shouldn't be hard on yourself and why you shouldn't focus so much on coming across as feminine. Like, don't act it out. Allow it to emanate from your core. Because if you try acting it out, people can read through that. People are energies and they can see that you're trying to act it out. So it's an ongoing practice and it's something that you learn over time and you work on. So I want to move on to another interesting thing that I came across on another video. I've forgotten the title of the video, but one of the things that the lady stated was, accessibility, which is basically that be hard to get, but be fun to keep. Like basically what this means is that fine, be scarce as a woman, like have the boundaries. Like a man asks to see you. If you're busy, you're busy. Like don't jump out just because he asked to see you. But then finally, when you are around, be fun to be around, So being hard to get doesn't mean that don't be hard to keep. When you're around, be useful, make jokes, play around, and if your partner, let's say he had made you angry and that's why you didn't want to see him and you stated the boundary that, okay, I don't want to see you because I'm angry. That's fine. But finally, when you're here, don't do grey rocking or silent treatment. Now that's abusive, Talk, speak your mind. This made me angry, or I'm not yet in a position to speak. Please give me a bit of some time. Communicate your feelings. That's being mature. That's being an adult. You understand? So don't do these psychology games. Hey. And speaking on youthfulness, this is part of, it's a huge part of femininity. And I will tell you what, this is probably something that women that are chasing their careers, they struggle with, because partly pursuing your career is going to make you very serious because you need to be competitive in that environment. And it's something that I had struggled with myself. I had become very serious. I started working last year and all you're thinking about is work, is performance. You stop being a fun person. You stop having relaxed conversation. I see myself I saw myself turn into this serious person, and my masculinity grew in a sense. And, I took, because I was very curious about masculine femininity conversation, I took a MF test, which is basically a test for your masculinity and femininity. And I came as 96% feminine and 42% masculine. So I was really happy with that because I was really becoming concerned about how masculine I am and which could probably contribute in the failure of relationships as well. So I was speaking on youthfulness, that I want to remind you that, again, on the psychology of things, men are attracted towards youth, right? And again, this is a biological thing. Why are they attracted or drawn towards younger women? Because this directly translates to fertility, right? This person, I can have children with this person. And another thing, the youthfulness, it's because there's a research study that came out recently, and the results signaled that women fully mature at the age of 32 and men at the age of 42. So with that being said, it's very important for us as women to remain playful and youthful because of those differences, and partly which is why women would gravitate towards older men as well, or that generational gap, that 10-year generational gap is kind of important in relationships. But anyway, we'll delve into that as we continue, because of those such biological traits as well. But I just wanted to say, ladies, let us stay youthful, and I think this heavily correlates with the softness as well, because if you're in your softness, you will be youthful as well. And as I mentioned earlier on, there will be a disconnect because of our backgrounds, where we come from, and the scarcity and the poverty. You tend to live in survival mode. And which is why, as you grow up to be a young woman and as you decide your identity, it's important to unlearn these things. That fine, I come from this kind of a background, but now I'm going to choose to be a woman that lives in abundance, who is soft, who is gentle. And speaking of abundance, I want to touch on this for men. Partly because as women, as part of being feminine, we talked about them decorating themselves and neck rings and all of that being associated with femininity. Now I want to say, because there's this burning conversation about, or women are materialistic now, love doesn't exist anymore. No, it's not like that. It's not like that. For women as well, it's sort of like in their biological makeup or sort of a social construct. But if you look at it, it's good in a way. One of the things I normally say is that it's not even what I normally say. There's a quote that says, women turn a house into a home. And it is through that materialism that they're able to do that, you know, because typically if you look at it, normally men are just comfortable. They would have one couch and their TV, as long as they can play their PS5, they are complete. They would buy chicken dust every day. They are comfortable. But a woman is the person who turns the house into a home so that it is visitor friendly. You know, she'll think about the tiny details, about the carpet, about the nice coffee table, about the nice mugs, about, you know, the things, whatever for children, so that the home is safe for children to play. Yes, mister?
I think there's a difference when Mabatsi, women like things. Mm-hmm. They don't mean these things that you're
I'm talking about. What are they talking about?
I think it's a generational thing now that we're saying women like things now. Because, you know, there's utterly no need to tell a man that you want an ice trope if you can't afford it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so they know. Ladies, so they know that we want ice trope.
We know what you want.
Okay.
But as long as you can't get it for yourself, you're drinking a Savannah and you want an ice trope. Come on. Yeah, you now want to put the man into a lifestyle that you yourself can't afford, even though you see as a man as a provider, right? Mm-hmm. But people shouldn't have like these great expectations from men and call it love.
Hold up. You know, I was going to scream this hold up, but I want to be feminine this day, so I was going to be soft. Hold up. Yeah, you know what? There's a study that was conducted, and it proved that men who are married and have children earn more than men who are single. Why am I bringing this up? It's in response to your point. And this does not necessarily mean that men who are married have more money, but it states that they earn more. Why do you think is that? It's because they have people to take care of, right? They have people to provide for. So this is the natural, it's the great motivation to go and pursue more, right? Because you have people to keep happy or to take care of. Now, when a woman comes up to you with this, like women have unlimited wants. They would always want things. And if as a man in your masculine, I would say take that as great
responsibility.
Motivation.
Yeah.
Because with women who are comfortable, who are sort of like in their masculine, who are not going to be putting that kind of pressure on you, you are going to be comfortable. Like I said, men are generally comfortable people. They can have their couch and their PS5 and then they're happy. So having this person who's nagging in your ear, let's get this. Look, guys, I notice this all the time. In these households where there's a woman and you find a couch with the nice fluffy pillowcases and you find these things in the bedroom or in the bathroom that just makes life comfortable. It beautifies the home. It is so beautiful. And guess what? I end up noticing that men appreciate these things in their houses. They're like, well, generally, I wouldn't go to a shop at Mr. Price Home to buy this, but the fact that it's in the house, I appreciate it. So I would say that, please, guys, appreciate your materialistic women. It's something I'm working on myself because I realized that it's not a good thing. If I'm going to chase my man to go for more, I need to like things. I need to like nice things.
But I think there's better ways to encourage a man to do better than, materializing everything.
Like?
As men, we could have motivation from having a kid, not the woman and her materialistic ideologies. It could just be having a child and now I have to provide for my child. Mm-hmm. So as a woman, you're just part of it because you have my child. And now you want my child to live a ridiculously materialistic life that is even more than my pay slip.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you find that most men find themselves in deep debts because of the materialistic wife. And I think that actually speaks to consumerism and like having unlimited wants, which is where the stoicism applies as well. Remember, self-moderation. And I think that is actually an area that us as women can work on. Like as much as we like nice things and we're materialistic, we need to be able to study the environment and also support the vision of the man. Because like he already said, men already know that we want nice things. You want the ice trope, you want the nice car, the nice home, the nice hair, but also men plan, they're visionaries, they are thinking of things in the long term. For an example, men normally plan for what happens when I'm dead. So you find that they'll be saving, they'll be preparing such things. So you need to be, as a woman, to be supportive of that kind of a vision. He's thinking about what happens to my wife and kids once I'm gone. So I understand where you're coming from, but I just also need you to understand where the lady is coming from when she's asking for things.
No,
and
that's natural to women. When you have more than enough, you can always give more than enough. That's my chat. My chat is not to put people under pressure just because your friend just got married and they bought her a Range Rover, and now you want a Range Rover from a man who's working a 9 to 5, has no business. No man that works a 9 to 5 and has no business can afford that.
Fact. Speaking of that, and to validate your point, I was having a conversation with a young man. I was working at a cafe, and he comes up to me because I'm on my laptop. He's like, can you help me with drafting a business plan? And I think that's because I'm on my laptop. So he's like, this one has the potential to help me. And then we are having a conversation. And I'm like, it's actually a good thing that, outside of work, you want to be pursuing your personal endeavors and entrepreneurship. And we go on to even have the conversation about pay. And he's like, I earn 1.5. And then within that, I have to pay rent, which is about 800. I still have to buy food, clothing. And then imagine from that money, baby girl, sangim sotanjan, understand? So this is a real challenge for men. And I just sort of want to raise this awareness to us as ladies to say that men know. And if he doesn't do, it's either, if he really loves you, it's either he's not able to do at the moment. I know there's the famous contemporary quote, would say, if he wants to, he will. That is true as well. If he wants to, he will. But I think let us also have the awareness that no shame, and it's really important for us to be supportive. But also, again, it boils down to the vulnerability. I feel like men are never vulnerable enough to talk about it. What they do, they just keep quiet, or they act in a funny way. They don't, come up with the vulnerability or go say, baby, let's budget for this. You understand? And also, for us women, I think this is where it comes in, the communication and the asking. I think if there's openness and transparency and communication, you can be able to have these kinds of conversations. And I think this is where in this podcast, it would be interesting to have experts and people who have been married to actually say, because it's for exploring. And then how do you transition from just the exploring to say, okay, now I want to date for seriousness, for companionship? And how do you actually introduce the conversations about money? Because it's a hard one. I think partly the reason why even in my own relationships, I've had the challenge to ask is because I'm so afraid of the money conversation. And I'm so afraid of a man telling me that because I feel like he will feel less of himself. You understand? So it's more, and it's like the conversation needs to be had because one day ndoba married in Benelkaya. So how do you split finances? How do you manage finances? It's a very crucial conversation to have. And then guys, it seems like I'm running out of time. Gandhi, I want to move on to masculinity. So again, on masculinity, these are attributes and behaviors and social constructs and roles associated with being a boy or a man. And now for masculinity, the interesting thing is that it dates back way before the medieval age to 3000 BC. And
Spartans.
yeah. And, it set expectations for men in terms of laws and just it's implied in masculine ideals relating to myths of gods and heroes. So one of the interesting things that I came across is the Code of Hammurabi, which is one of the best preserved legal texts from back in the day. And Rule 128, which I want to read out to you, it says that if a man takes a woman to wife, but has no intercourse with her, this woman is no wife to him.
I agree with that though. Because wait,
go ahead.
Look at it like this. The whole purpose for intercourse is to bear children and create a sustainable society that will be here even in the far future. So if that man doesn't sleep with that woman, that thing won't happen.
Exactly.
You understand? Which is what you said in the beginning of this podcast, societal roles, and family is the cornerstone of every society.
Exactly.
You know?
Absolutely.
So I agree with that rule 128.
I do as well. And it actually goes on to speak for, so it sort of like sets around the expectation for men to have sexual desire. So the interesting thing is that when you look at femininity, women are expected or speculated to be sexually passive and sexually receptive. But men, on the other hand, are speculated to be sexually assertive and to have sexual desire. So, which is why us women maybe we're normally afraid and shy to speak about sex and just have this shyness towards procreation. Your sex is strong, procreation. And then on the other hand, for men, it just shows masculinity. They talk about it. They have pride talking about it, that they're getting laid and why it is such an important thing for them to do, you know. So that is for one, which also speaks for procreation. And then there's another one, it's Germania, which was written by Tacitus. And he writes about the fact that Germanic tribes fought aggressively to protect their women from captured by being the enemy, which also speaks on what? On aggressiveness. It also speaks on protection. And then when you look at other things, like from the Bible, when God curses humanity, women get to experience excruciating, painful labor pains. And also, on the other hand, the man is given the responsibility to provide for his family. Other things like he's given the responsibility to be the head of the family, which speaks for leadership, right? So that is how I think going through the research on femininity and masculinity, I think the interesting thing for me was that there's much more information on femininity and what it means to be feminine, but there isn't much on masculinity. And I think there is a gap there. And, you know, I feel like nowadays the world is telling men what not to be, but they're not being told what to be, which causes a sort of a crisis in itself. And they're facing so much of an identity crisis and just trying to fit into the world on what is expected of us, Gandhi. So we sort of need to pave a way for men to understand and what we expect from them. But just to keep it short for you as a young man, trying to figure out yourself, I think the main core three things that you need to know when it comes to masculinity is the 3 Ps. Protect, provide, procreate, before we go on to anything else. So, Mawindoda, go to the gym. Huh? Learn how to fight.
Yeah, you don't need to go to the gym. You just need to know how to fight.
But look,
the gym doesn't help. If you're a gym body and you're against someone who can fight, that body doesn't help you with anything.
Yeah, that's true. So
if for young men, I think most of them should try to listen to Jordan B. Peterson and Andrew Tate, so that they can get back that manly thing, that masculinity thing, but learn how to...
That we need in society.
Yes, that we need in society. That is there to protect the women. Because women, basically, in an African society, women are children. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
That's the masculine perspective of women and children. But look, I agree with that. And which is why I always tell men that... you know, so this is masculinity from eyes of Claudia, right? Like what I would tell to a man. Like, first of all, make sure that you're informed, you're knowledgeable, read, try to be exposed, try to have an idea. Like, in fact, studies show that generally masculinity in society is seen as being knowledgeable on sport, drinking alcohol, making risky decisions, being aggressive, being sexual, all of those things. So I would say that nowadays in modern society, just have the ability to discern how much you do, what you do, and how much you do. Because at the end of the day, these things are still going to be regarded as masculine, and more especially because you want to gain the respect, more especially the respect of other men. So I would say that be knowledgeable. I, for one, I'm very attracted to men who are knowledgeable, who can have intellectual conversations. But just aside from the perspective of attractiveness, a woman will look up to you. I think this is hardwired into our being. We look up to men for authority, to leadership. So it is very important for you to have that sense of authority and being knowledgeable, right? So it's one of the things that I would say when it comes to men. And the other thing is that women date upwards is one thing that you need to know. Women date upwards is something that I was listening to. Stephen Bartlett was having a conversation with some experts that I've forgotten, but women date upwards in terms of age. Yeah. We've already touched on this because age is associated with wisdom, with acquisition of resources as well, with leadership. So I would say that as a young man, you probably do not have the resources at the moment, right? And it's a lifelong thing. It's a journey. Work hard. Working hard is important. And part of working hard, be okay with pain. Honestly, I feel like being a man in its essence, like we experience the world differently as the different genders, and the world isn't very gentle to men. You know, one of the attributes to masculinity is competitiveness. And which is why I partly believe that women were not built for the corporate space because it's very competitive, yet men are hardwired for it. They are ready for it, you know. So really work hard and be comfortable with pain, apply the Stoic maxims, and also work on your wisdom. Read as much as you can, self-reflect, discern between your past experiences so that you can make better decisions in the future, and also heal. Healing is very important.
From
you know.
what?
Heal, guys, heal. So much happens around you, you know.
But let me ask you a question. How can I heal, especially if like they're saying I should be able to face pain? When I face pain, I end up having like a default system that just has to deal with that pain in a certain way, you know, in a way that, because us men, we laugh at our problems.
Yeah, that's true.
We laugh at our problems. If we have a problem, and we can't do anything about it, we're definitely going to laugh about it because what can you change? As a man, you should know what you're able to fix, what you're not able to fix, so you can be able to move easily within those spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, which means that you should be clever or through experience, which is why you're saying women date upwards. You know, through experience comes wisdom.
Exactly.
And with that being said, most men find it wise to be very quiet. That's why you find most men, as they grow, they're more quieter. Yeah.
Oh, and being quiet. You know what? Because we're getting to redefine masculinity and femininity in our modern day age. There's the contemporary conversation about, man, open up, you know, speak to us. And this feminist, probably, I don't know, feminist or who's going to hate me for this, but I just want to say that this is advice from Claudia, and you can safely say you took it from Claudia. Don't open up to women. Don't. Don't, please. And you know what? There are great initiatives out there in the kingdom, like the Agwaka Invoter. I love it. You know, partly the reason that there's that organization, it was because of the rising cases of HIV and also GBV. So which is why it's there to support men. Go for platforms like those, and also go for the important thing for men is just to have an environment of men that you look up to or you respect, or like our coaches. So please ground yourself, center yourself around men like that. But do not open up to us women. Why? I'll give you my reason.
Very manipulative.
I'll give you a reason why.
I'm joking.
It's because even if you, as a smart woman who wants to support you and loves you, but the moment there's a seed in my head that I don't trust you enough to handle things, it just destabilizes everything. Because like I said, women look up to men as a source of authority and leadership. And I need to trust, well, what's it sideways? Yeah, I understand. So the best way to open up to a woman is for you to have a problem, solve it, and then come back later. Yeah. But say solve it. You are reinforcing, hey, You understand? So I would just say that, guys, we're very aware that, it's the sad thing is that we are losing most men to suicide cases than women. You guys are going through a lot. And because of the societal burden that you have, like it's still, no matter how much the times are moving, we'd still very much look up to you to protect, provide. And if you're not able to do that, it really does affect your confidence, right?
It's so sad how feminism said we don't need a man.
Guys, we need each other. If there's one thing, we need each other. I think this entire conversation today was just basically to touch on that we need each other. And like we talked, for men, it's like masculinity is described as aggressiveness. And I've already touched that. It's important. I think it is still very much an attractive trait to women as well. Because if you look at it, women, since time immemorial, they would go for powerful men. They'd go for men who'd fight in wars. And they would still need a man to protect even in the house. So aggressiveness in itself is not too bad, but which is why healing is important. It's saying, if you find that a woman has cheated on you, don't kill her, Pela. Leave her. You understand? It's just understanding where to apply your aggressiveness and make it useful in the community. And also, so what was I saying? Yeah.
Aggressiveness.
Yeah, aggressiveness.
Well, I actually agree with you with that. Like every man should know when and how to be aggressive, because there's actually no need to be beating a woman. A woman can't do anything to you as a man. Like literally.
I mean,
like what if you and I were in a relationship and you did something wrong? I think it's best for a man to leave.
Exactly.
Not in a bad way, but there's plenty of women out there and some of them are trying to find a good man. So if you are a good man.
That's a man is masculine. Who doesn't have the scarcity mindset, who knows there are a lot of women out there, good women who are also looking for good men. So I'm not going to beat you, but I'm going to go out there, do some masculine ass shit and and find a good woman. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So, but I think another thing is just that men need to heal, like you're saying, especially more on the tone thing that you touched on, Men are emotionally intelligent beings. That's their problem. They're not driven by their emotions. As a man, you should be an emotionally intelligent being. You should be stoic as a man and be very, very aware of your emotions so that you can be able to control them.
Don't brush them off.
Don't brush them off. Be aware of them.
Do not suppress them.
Be very aware of them. But so that, because if you suppress them, you'll do what they call, I snapped. What's that?
Exactly.
It doesn't exist.
Exactly. And also it actually speaks on femininity as well, that as women, let's not suppress our anger. So there's this thing that comes with the fact that as women, we're expected to be cooperative and shy and supportive. And then we are afraid of speaking up when we are angry because we're afraid that we're not going to look feminine. And I just want to say that even when you express yourself, you're still feminine. And as well as men, well, men deal with it differently. In fact, John Gray, who wrote Women Are from Mars, Men Are from Venus. I'm sorry if I interchanged that. You can confirm on the internet. He actually talked about the fact that when men have challenges, they go into their man cave. So the man cave looks like sitting in the garage or going to spend time with friends. They just need their space. And that gives them time out from their problems, not to actually think about their problems, but time out from their problems. As contrary to us women, we actually talk about things. So which is why we'll probably heal faster because we talk about them. And again, when it comes to relationships, I think this is where both genders need this awareness. So when your woman comes up to you to talk about her problems, this is where we need you as men to listen to us and not jump to the conclusion. Do you know how frustrating it is? I tell you a problem, you jump to the solution. No, I need you to listen to me. But and we have the natural ability to actually solve our own problems, and you're actually ripping me of the opportunity to get satisfaction, gratification.
So you just want to vent.
I just want to vent. So just listen, even if you're pretending, pretend, because that's what I need from you. You understand? And for us women, when your man goes to the man cave, be supportive. Never say like, you're giving me attention. Allow him to go to his man cave. He knows what he's doing, right? But I would say in the gist of everything, it's communication. Let us learn to communicate, be kind to each other, be patient with each other, and just understand these differences biologically and psychologically, And I would say that another thing that is very important into making these relationships successful is self-development. I think if all of us are taking time to understand ourselves, our identity, our purpose, and our healing and our roles that we provide, everything else is just going to ooze so seamlessly. For an example, if you're on your self-development journey, the attraction towards your partner would never go away because you're forever in awe of who they become, of what they learned, of what they are trying out. So I would say that, communication, self-development, kindness, patience, understanding, and, all of those things.
Dealing with problems, not people.
Yeah.
That one was very beautiful. I like that one.
Yeah, right.
Because at the end of the day, if you love the person that you're with, there's actually no need for you guys to fight each other because you want to be with each other. You should actually fight the problem that is trying to break you guys apart.
Exactly.
And
inkinga
ukuthi sidathi siyakhuluma kube ngazuthi asithandze ukuchaza.
Okay, ladies, listen,
because at the end of the day, I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you're saying I must just trust you.
Just trust me, especially when I say something that, because women have trust issues. Actually,
we do
more than men. But nyalo sekuyashintsha because now there's a lot of
and we are women we are women in male roles now, eh?
Besides even the women in male roles, we feel like women aren't people that get satisfied now. Back in the day, besathi ukuthi baba bathi ukuthi hayi batawusoma inyanga yonke, and that's not a problem. But they knew ukuthi this woman ngimsoma inyanga yonke lana ngisoma umfato wami litshitshi lami ngithathela lona.
You know what? It's so unfortunate that we don't have enough time. There's so much that I want to respond to with regards to that. He's talking about how bad back in the day. And I was just telling the crew the previous week, you can see, we forget women didn't have much rights and they didn't have much access to resources. So in order for me to obtain land, I need you by my side. In order for me to have access to certain things, women couldn't even get certain jobs or, so because of his situation. And this is the inevitable truth. Women are needing men less and less, which is why we need to redefine femininity and masculinity. And because of that, nowadays, we're asking men, most women, especially independent women, they're not asking for money or for provision. They're asking for a man to be someone who's able to communicate, who can be accountable, who can, so we're now asking for more of the traits that we're talking about that we see in femininity. And again, it brings up another conversation. As women, are we ready for men like that who are in their feminine? You understand? So, which we cannot cover in one day, but that is the honest truth. And also, I wanted to bring this up. I came across a reel on Instagram and I really found the response of the woman very profound. They asked her, what does she say when a man asks her what she brings into the table? And she says, I ask what the table needs. And I think this is a very relevant conversation nowadays because the tables have changed. We can outsource many things. Basically, men need women who to clean, but they can just hire a helper. So, we needed a man for but now we have access to jobs, we have access to money. So the table has changed. What do you have to offer? So it's in terms of just understanding what the table needs. But in Germany, speaking for myself, I'm still very much a traditional and a conservative woman. I want my man to provide. I want to clean. I want to take care of him. I want to nurture. And then provide a little bit of other things, But anyway, guys, we've been going on and on and on and on, but that is it for episode 4 from Real Talk with Claudia. I hope you gained a lot. I hope you can engage and share with us. What are your thoughts? What do you see masculinity and femininity looking like in the next 20, 50 years? And, yeah, that is it from us today. And I just would like to urge you to continue to subscribe, share, watch with friends, talk about us. And guys, please keep on giving me the feedback. It is so heartwarming warming, and it's just making me feel like I'm contributing to the world. So I really appreciate you. It goes a long way in me making sure that I show up for the next episode and the next episode and the next episode. And just to, we end every episode with a quote. And today's quote is, "The heart wants what it wants. There is no logic to these things. You meet someone and you love them, and that's that." A quote by Woody Allen. And this is just to say, guys, the heart wants what it wants. And sometimes I understand why people stay in these unfavorable relationships, because the heart wants what it wants. But at the same time, it is why it is very important for you to work on loving yourself, on having the healthiest form of love with yourself, so that you are attracted to similar people, so that you're able to give similar and get it in return. So, guys, that is it from us. And maybe nje sesicetha bengingasho ukuthi sicela ukuthi mhlambe beningasipha ijaha nje lelifotile ukuthi lito litawukhuluma sitawuhlahlela yona lenzaba yokuthi engabe butfotsa kule tikhathi tanamuhla. Guys, stop laughing at me. Yebo guys, ngisuggeste ingatsha ithi tawusitshela ukuthi ngabe indvodza isasoma ngetinkomo tayo yini. Mina personally I loved that thing.
Yebo, indvodza idla ngemabala ayo.
Nokuthi engabe kuba ngimake welikhaya nje namuhla longadisha sifuba athi ngimake welikhaya kuchaza ukuthini ukuletha insuku tanamuhla. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Real Talk with Claudia. Looking forward to see you next time. With love.